When they want to catch you, the trick isn't to run fast. It's to run just slow enough to make the hunter think he's almost got you. Rain needles my face as I sprint along the spine of a ruined conveyor belt, the old port yawning below in broken teeth of dock pylons and black water. Sirens chew at the night behind me, distant, hungry. The warehouse roofs are slick and mean, the neon of the fish market across. The canal coughs in and out, pink on, pink off, like a failing heartbeat. If they put me in a cage again, I'll blow the cage from the inside. It's not a metaphor. The weight in my vest is real. The switch taped under my wrist is real. The worst things about me are always real. Boots thud behind me. Heavier, measured, not panicked, not police. He moves like a metronome with lungs. Whoever he is, he's reading my stride, my breath, the pattern of my feet on wet metal. Hunters don't have to see you to know you if they know your rhythm. I drop to a lower roof, roll, come up with my palms stinging. The old port warehouse smells like wet dust and iron filings. Somewhere in there a generator clatters a thin, resentful clatter. I hear him follow. No scrape, no curse. Silent, thoughtful. I leave him a present at the skylight. The flashbang is the size of a plum, printed in a garage that isn't mine under a name. That isn't mine. And I thumb the pin loose with a kindness I reserve only for machines. I lob it through the broken glass. He arrives at the edge of the skylight, just as the light detonates. White swallows the night. The warehouse hurls the blast back at itself, a roar of concrete. Birds burst from the rafters like torn cloth. I don't wait to see if he goes down. I run. Across the roofline, over the gutter, down a fire escape that coughs, rust on my shoulders, into an alley where the puddles are oil dark. My heart is a drum. I let it pound. I don't slow down until the alley opens into a strip of dead loading. Docks and the rain lifts enough for me to sort sound from silence. He's still there, not close, not far. The kind of distance a professional chooses. Far enough to breathe, close enough to tell you he's not impressed. I let the alley wrap me, metal smell and standing water soaking into my clothes, and listen. He doesn't cough. He doesn't mouth the usual profanity. What he does is worse. Nothing. That's when I decide he's not police. Out past the chain-link fence, a boxy sedan sits in the bow of shadow under a loading. Crane. Wrong car for this neighborhood. Right car for a surveillance stakeout. Too clean. No bumper stickers. The wipers are angled like they were set there by someone who keeps his world lined up to the millimeter. I lose him for a heartbeat. No footfalls, no splash. And when I look back at the roofline, the black edge is empty. Clever boy. The rain thins to a prickle. I slide through a gap in the fence, crossing to the car. The door is locked, of course. The lock is also insultingly basic, the kind you could open with a faith and a hairpin. I don't. I press my palm to the cold glass and fog it with a slow breath. Inside, a neat rig. 2 handguns, cleaned into boredom. A field kit rolled so tight the straps don't even smile. A tablet with a case that says he doesn't drop things. Minimal food. No trash. No smell. You learn a lot from the shape of a man's mess. This man doesn't leave any. I catch my reflection in the window instead. Pale hair flat with rain, eyes a feral amber in the neon sputter, too sharp. Omega, they say. Like that's the headline and the last line. They never see the rest, the way the jaw squares when the choices fight, the hands that know how to break a rifle down blind. People see what they want. Hunters see what they're paid to. Footsteps whisper behind me. Crisp. I'm already moving, sliding under the dock lip as a shadow cuts across the car. He stops there, the hunter, close enough that the air changes. I taste it at the back of my tongue, cedar and heat under rain. Something stately, disciplined. Alpha. Every nerve I own wants to flare, to reach. I tell my nerves to sit, and for once they listen. He stands like a balance scale. I can see his legs from my hide, tailored dark, the set of a man who doesn't fidget. He doesn't touch the car. He turns his head once, listening. Then he smiles, just a breath of it, and says into the night, almost conversational flashbangs, "Cute." My mouth does a stupid little thing. It smiles back. I don't give it permission. It does it anyway. By the time I'm out of the docks and into the teeth of the rain again, I've downgraded him from problem to hobby. You shouldn't do that with men like him, but I've learned something over the past year. If you let your world be nothing but problems, you forget why you ever ran. A hobby is a shape you can play with. I intend to. I lie low until noon. The city shakes the rain off in slaps and shrugs, and the sun glares at the puddles like it's offended. In the daylight, the port looks less like a mouth full of broken teeth, and more like a set of tools left out too long in the weather. I change jackets, change posture, change the way my feet hit the ground. Small things that turn a hunted animal into a man on an errand. The diner on Bayline has two things I need: coffee and a booth facing both exits. I order, without looking up. "Latte," I tell the kid at the counter. "Extra mint." He makes a face. "We don't get a lot of that." "2 pumps then." Maybe I'll start a trend. The first sip is wrong, in exactly the way I like it. Sweet enough to hurt. Cold mint sliding under hot foam. It tastes like a bad idea wearing a nice suit. I fold my hands around the cup and let my heart settle into something that isn't flight. The scanner in my pocket trills. It's a crude little thing. A hyena of a device, laughing at the parts of the band the big boys use, and I thumb it on under the table. Voices filter through like they're talking through water. I skim until I catch a polite tenor wrapped in money, that West Side vowel. Polish I grew up hearing from behind doors I wasn't allowed to open. "Not complicated," the voice says. "Alive. That is the condition." I don't know the other voice. I know the silence between his words. Considered. Weight-bearing. A soft click, like someone's turning a thought over. Then, alive costs extra. I don't move. Coffee is a little island. The kid drops a basket of fries somewhere behind the counter. The fryer coughs. Out on Bayline, a truck rumbles. It sounds like a tired animal. The voice I know, Rick's, my brother, smiles into the line. I can hear it without needing to see it. "Everything costs extra with you people. We're not bartering laundry, Mr. Darius. Bring him home. You'll have your number." Darius. I roll the name on my tongue without taste. Not the police then. Not a househound from one of the smaller families. A hired wolf. The line goes dead. I breathe, slow. I let the reality of it come in layers. They know I'm here. They're paying. He took the job. Rain dries on the window in streaks. The neon across the street blinks its slow, stupid blink. I think about cages again. I think about the day my father taught me to shoot. The heavy world. Of the rifle in my arms, the way the recoil rang clean up my bones. "You don't have to be strong forever," he said. Uncharacteristically human for a man made of ledger paper and rules. "You just have to be strong at the moment that matters." He didn't mean the moments I think he meant. The bell on the diner door sings. He walks in like a problem you've tried to ignore long enough to convince yourself it's imaginary. Dark coat, wet at the shoulders, the careful apportioning gaze that never lands on anything longer than it needs to. He's bigger up close, but it isn't the big that tries to fill a room, it's the big that knows it always will. The kid at the counter straightens instinctively, the way people do around men with gravity. Darius doesn't scan for me. That's the most insulting part. He stands at the counter, orders in a voice that sounds like a file sliding home. "Black, coffee, cream, sugar, no thank you." That voice. It's the one that told my brother alive costs extra. He takes the cup, pays in bills, not card, and turns his head toward the glass. I'm a smudge of a man in a booth. He doesn't look at the booths. He sips. The lines at the corners of his eyes suggest once upon a time he laughed freely. They don't do that now. I make my move small. When the kid turns, when the truck downshift out on Bayline makes the windows hum, I let the receipt slip from my funnel of fingers to the floor just behind my boot. I step out of the booth, let it sit there on the tile like a breadcrumb. I leave a tip for a person I might not see again. I walk out without hurry. If you run where a hunter can see you, he doesn't have to try. Make him try. The bell sings again when he follows. I'm 3 doors down, paused in the half-light under a busted awning. The wind is a mean child pulling at my coat. Darius steps onto bayline, glances left, just enough to clock exits. Cars, bodies in motion. And then he does exactly what I wanted him to. He stops. He looks down. He picks up the receipt I dropped. He reads it. His mouth crooks. Not a smile, not yet, but something like private amusement slipping its leash. He says, very softly, to the empty street, mint syrup. Who even drinks that crap? I do, Wolf. Come get your sugar. I don't wait for him to turn. I don't need to see his eyes to know what color they are when he's interested. I take the alley that runs behind the diner and the pawn shop, and the florist that never throws anything away, and I let my feet set that rhythm again, fast, then slow, then fast, enough to feel like I'm almost within reach. There's a game I learned in a different life. If they name you prey, you make them work for. It's so long that when they finally take your throat, they've forgotten why they wanted it. We'll hold up a mirror and let them see themselves. Most hunters hate that more than they hate losing. Behind me, footsteps. Closer now. He's taken the bait. Good. My mouth does that stupid thing again. It smiles. I let it. Bad ideas earn their suits. Let's go, Mr. Alive costs extra. I whisper to the alley, and to the predator-shaped gravity entering it. Let's see who forgets why, first. By morning the port has a new face. The storm-rubbed anger of last night dries into a sleepy, salt-bright quiet. The kind small towns put on like a cardigan with elbows gone thin. Sun coins off puddles. Gulls heckle from the pier. The air tastes like brine and spent oil. I like it here because the sounds are humble. Engines that cough before they start. Doors that complain when you ask them to open wider. Machines that speak a language I can answer with my hands. My garage is a square of shadow with its mouth open to the alley. The sign says Hale's Fix, letters flaking, H hanging by a nail, because old Hale bought the lease and I pay in work and discretion. He minds the papers. I mind the bolts. Fair trade. The shelves are crowded with tools that remember better days. A radio sits on a paint-scarred bench, dial forever between stations, giving me old jazz warped like a smile through bad teeth. On the stand, my bike, front wheel off, guts bare. She looks indecent and trusting at once. You keep that up, Miro says from the doorway. She's going to start charging rent. Jealous? I don't look up. The brake caliper is being petty, and I'm patient enough to out stubborn metals. You could always help. Pass me the 8mm. Miro pads in, long legs, and a jacket 2 sizes bigger than her attitude. Beta, sharp as a fishbone, hair braided back so it doesn't fall into her eyes when she's picking locks or pockets. She nudges the tray with a toe until the socket winks under my nose. Here, she leans against the bench and zones in on me with that expression that says she has feelings to share and I'm the lucky winner. You're still hiding like a stray cat. Cats at least fight when they're cornered, I say, fitting the socket, muscle memory humming. I'm avoiding corners. She snorts, unamused. You lit up half the warehouse district last night. Your idea of subtlety needs a medic. Flashbangs aren't loud where it matters. Your definition of matters is the last breath before stupid. She picks up a rag, wipes a non-existent smear off the tank, because touching the bike is how we say the soft things. Word came down the road. Ricks put a price on your return. Alive. I tighten the bolt until the caliper considers behaving. The word alive sits between my ribs, like a coin in a slot where the prize hasn't dropped yet. Alive, I repeat. Yeah. Means you're valuable again. Miro's mouth tenses, displeasure dressed as a joke. Or fragile. Either way, the hungry ones will come sniffing. The professional ones already are. I think about the shadow, with the cedar heat under rain, the neat car, the voice that asked for black coffee like the world was a file to slide home. I met one, I say. Miro's eyebrows make a quick climb. And you're not bleeding? Disappointing, I know. Her eyes flick to my wrists, my throat, cataloging. Name? Darius. The syllables sit straight in the mouth. Walks like a scale that always balances. Smells like discipline. Miro groans. You and your poetry about murderers. I contain multitudes. Hand me the torque wrench. She does. Promise me you won't do the face. What face? The one where you get interested. You only do two kinds of interested, engines and problems. Guess which he is? Both, I say, because she's right, and I'm not built for lying to people who know what my silences mean. Her gaze softens the way sand does when a wave retreats. Luke. I tighten down the last bolt until the numbers in my hands are right. Don't say my name like it's a wound. She folds herself into Hale's chair and steals his coffee, grimacing at the taste. Then maybe stop treating every handout as a knife. Some people mean you. Not your bloodline, not the ledger. You. I walked away from a ceremony designed to turn me into a mood ring. For whoever won the bidding, I say, too light to be entirely steady. Keep your hands. I already have two. She tilts the cup at me. And yet, here you are, building a third out of a motorcycle. I grin because the line deserves it. At least this one lets me decide where we're going. The day warms. We work in the lazy way people do when they want to stay in a moment. I talk about friction, and she pretends to be bored while listening hard. She talks about the docks and the men who gamble away the rent, I pretend. Not to care while tracking names that might become teeth later. By noon, the town is full of itself in the sweet way places get on good weather days. Chatter floats like lint. A breeze picks up salt, carries it through the open door. My guard dogs, the wren and the radio, start and stop in turns. I'm aligning the front fork when I feel it. A small wrongness in the air. Not a sound. A tilt. Like a coin being laid on a table you thought was already set. What? Miro says without lifting her eyes from her phone. Is making your hackles do that ballet? Gravity, I say. Pretend you're normal. I wipe my hands, leave the bike mid-surgery, and cross the threshold into sun. The street moves in loops. Tourists wondering if they should spend money on another cheap shirt, locals pretending not to watch the tourists wonder. There's a new piece on the board, all right. He doesn't look like a storm. He looks like a man who has never in his life needed to raise his voice. Darius comes in from the South Road, coat open to the mild day, a small backpack sitting too neatly on his shoulder. He scans like he's counting screws and exits. His eyes pass over the garage without hooking, but the muscles in my neck still decide to lesson plan for impact. Coffee? I ask Miro. She smirks. You going to buy him one or poison it? Why pick? I head down the block. The cafe is one of those places with a chalkboard menu and a barista who says the names of drinks like they're characters in a novel he dislikes. I order my usual, extra mint and a pain au chocolat because joy must be fed or it goes feral. The bell jingles when the door opens again. Darius steps in and becomes the most orderly thing in the room. He doesn't look at me first. He looks at the counter, the register, the exit to the back alley. He takes in faces the way you measure lumber, length, width, usefulness. Then his gaze lands. Holding steady eye contact is a game. I've lost it to men who thought winning meant licking their teeth for the camera. Darius doesn't lick anything. He looks like a decision being made in a clean room. You always look like you're deciding whether to kill or kiss, I say, lazy to disguise the pulse that just skipped. A slip of surprise, small as a cufflink, loosens at the corner of his mouth. I haven't chosen yet. The barista clears his throat, offended by our failure to order within a normal human time frame. I lift my cup. Mint latte. Black, Darius tells the barista. Then, almost like a concession to the joke we're building, with whatever you put in that. Mint? The barista asks, skeptical and a little frightened. He inclines his head. Sure. The drink arrives like a dare. He sips without flinching. You're impossible, I say. Occupational hazard. His voice lives in the low middle, where men put trust without meaning to. We take a table by the window because sunlight makes it harder to lie. From here, I can see Hale's sign and the long peel of road that drapes the town in two. Our reflections hover on the glass, mine looser, hair catching sun, his precise edges tucked in. We sit the way people do when not saying matters more than what's out loud. So, he says finally. Luke. He makes my name gentle and exact. I hate that. You can call me Leo around here, I say, equally gentle and equally exact. Hale likes the paperwork to be boring. Hale likes a lot of things to be boring. You two met? We have a civic understanding. He looks at the street, not at me. He doesn't want trouble in his shop. It's a good thing I always take mine to go. He smiles that breath of a smile again. Offhand, you'd miss it. Up close, it's a weather change. Miro ghosts past the window, glances in, doesn't stop. A warning and a vote of confidence at once. I relax a degree. Darius notices, of course. Men like him don't miss degrees. He folds his big hands around the cup, like he's pretending to be a man who likes lunch breaks. They told you alive, I say. He doesn't blink. Yes. Good for my prospects. Also bad. He tips the cup. Alive is expensive in ways people don't calculate. My brother calculates everything. He can make a prayer sheet into a ledger. That's not a kind thing to say. It's a true thing. We sit in that honest air for a beat. Outside, a fisherman laughs at something only he finds funny. The town keeps breathing. Why mint? He asks. It reminds me I have a mouth, I say. And choices. A flick of understanding passes between us. He sets the cup down with the care you give live ordnance. You think choices make you safe. I think they make me mine. He doesn't argue. He drinks the weird coffee like it's penance. We part with no theatrics. He leaves first, because that's his style, and because leaving me looking after him would be too much of a tell. The bell rings. The door shuts. The space he leaves behind presses out its breath. I sit 2 minutes longer, long enough to memorize how his presence moved the light. When I stand, my knee knocks the underside of the table. Something clinks at my boot. A coin. No, not a coin. A token. Heavy enough to insist on itself. The metal has a matte bite. The symbol stamped into it is clean and old. The K of my family whose corners were always sharp enough to cut. I don't need to lift it to smell it. But I do. Cedar under rain. Discipline. The hunter believed in breadcrumbs too. Cute, I say to the token, which is not for me and absolutely for me. We're doing theater now. I buy another coffee for Miro and carry it back to the garage, token in my pocket, heat against my thigh like a low fever. She takes the cup, eyes me, waits. He left his business card, I say, and flip the token into the air. It spins a small, mean moon and lands in her palm. Miro swears softly. He knows exactly who you are. He wants me to know he knows. Then stop giving him more to know. I smile because she deserves a performance. Where would the fun be in that? Her mouth flattens. Luke. I'll be careful, I say, and mean it the way daredevils mean safety instructions. Night falls on the town like the soft side of a blade. I pack in order, documents, cash, tools, 3 shirts, the jacket that hides knives without complaining. My vest kisses my ribs with its familiar weight. I leave Hale a note that reads sorry about the sign, and tuck it where he'll find it before he misses me. Miro arrives without needing to be asked, shoulders a bag onto the bench, hands me goggles. North Road will be watched, she says. Take the cliffside. There's a turnoff behind the dead billboard. And the hunter? He'll think like you, she says, which means he'll be exactly where you'd be if you were him. Romantic, I say, and swing a leg over the bike. The engine barks, then purrs when I ask nice. The headlamp paints the alley into a tunnel toward elsewhere. Miro leans in, presses her forehead to mine for heartbeat-long human contact, then thumps the tank twice like a blessing. Go, she says. I go. The cliff road runs like a scar along the coast, blacktop stitched to rock with rebar and optimism. The sea on my right is a black lung exhaling slow. The wind claws, salt and cold. It tastes like a dare. I ride fast enough to convince myself I'm free, slow enough to listen. He's waiting where I would be, past the billboard's corpse, where the turn pinches narrow and the guardrail gives you nothing if you misjudge. A sedan idles on the shoulder, headlights courteous but firm. The man beside it is shadow plus intention. I downshift, let the bike growl. He steps forward into my light. The road decides to hold its breath. Evening, Darius says, as if we're out for milk. Working late? I angle the bike so escape stays an option and death stays a rumor. Occupational hazard. Your occupation seems hazardous to mine. His eyes take me in the way a craftsman studies a joint before the glue commits. You always leave by the prettiest road? I'm a romantic. He moves like weather-changing lanes. No rush, reallocation of pressure. His hand is empty until it isn't. My boot taps the gear lever, a thought ahead of thought. The bike and I share a pulse. We meet in the notch between heartbeats. Steel kisses air, rubber stamps asphalt, salt claws throats. He catches my wrist when my knife says hello. I catch his shoulder when his body says stop. It's neat, clean, professional, and then it isn't, because the smell hits both of us at once, cedar-honed heat meeting my smoke and mint, sparks under skin. We freeze the way animals do when the part of the brain older than houses hears thunder. Luke, he says. Softer. Different. Darius, I answer, same. Our bodies remember they were taught to be smart. We break apart. He steps back, hands open. Not a victory, not a loss. I roll the throttle, the bike snarls, eager to turn momentum into distance. He doesn't reach for a gun. He doesn't call in a net. He just looks. Eyes the color of a decision I haven't made yet. I'm not running, Darius, I say over the engine, wind pulling my voice thin. He tilts his head, curious, attentive, like a man at the start of a good story. No? I'm making you follow. I drop the clutch. The night swallows me, sweet as it can. Behind me, footsteps of an engine, not too fast, not too slow. Exactly, close enough. The forest closes in like a throat. Fog clings to the trunks, low and thick, and the pines bleed their clean medicinal breath into air already scarred by smoke. Somewhere behind me, the road gives up pretending to be civilized. Ahead, the old airfield dissolves into a grid of shadows and corrugated ghosts. I ditch the bike under a blown-down spruce and go in on foot. The ground is a tight drum of frost and dead needles. I move without hurry, because hurry leaves fingerprints. My vest carries its familiar weight. The pockets remember me. In the distance, something metallic ticks as it cools. The fog keeps the sound small. The hangar I want is one of the survivors, rib cage intact, doors ajar like a busted grin. Inside is a square lake of dimness and the comforting geometry of things that used to matter to planes. I've walked this space 3 times already this week, turned distances into measurements and measurements into decisions. You can make a friend of any room if you show up enough. Tripwire, left side, ankle height, thin as a hair, mean as one. The charge it kisses is modest, designed to slap, not maim. A flash to disorient, a bang to convince. In the right corner, tucked behind a pallet's shadow, a second treat waits, shaped charge to bully a wall beam. I don't need death tonight. I need discouragement, confusion, time. I palm the first wire and breathe back onto it to watch the fog halo cling. Then let it lie. I take my place in the mess of crates where a window's absence makes a square of paler dark. The forest breathes. The hangar holds its breath for it. He comes quiet. The good ones always do. A smear of darker dark moves along the far wall and resolves into a man who belongs to the word deliberate. He checks corners with the courtesy you give host families. Darius is a system in motion, all inputs weighed, outputs clean. The fog beads his hair where it curls at the nape. His coat wears the weather like it's expected. He smells like yesterday did, cedar under rain, heat under discipline. For a second my chest does the wrong thing, it eases. That is not a survival skill. I tighten my hand around the little box tucked into the crate seam, thumb on the toggled switch. I let him have 5 steps closer, because I am greedy, and because I want him to see the shape of the trap he's in when it shuts. He sees it too late, which is to say, he sees it exactly when I want him to. His weight comes down, the wire kisses, the hanger explodes with white, sound and light cracking through each other like ice. The world loses its edges. The fog goes incandescent. Even where I crouch, ears stuffed with cheap foam, the blast punches my bones. I'm moving before the echo finishes, low and mean, crossing the floor as the light eats itself back to dim. Darius isn't down, of course he isn't, but he's not pretty. He caught the worst of the second hit when the beam jumped and spat, his shoulders a red argument. He's taken cover with professional instincts, back to a crate, gun out, eyes wrong from the flash. I told you we were doing theater, I say, because I'm stupid when I'm winning. The gun tilts toward my voice. He doesn't fire, maybe because he can't see me, maybe because even men like him know you don't shoot blindly in rooms you can't map. Luke, he says, and the syllable is careful and unafraid. I circle to his non-dominant side and slide in neat and patient. My knife says hello to the gun, metal to metal. The gun decides it wants the floor. We are suddenly close enough to share weather. The scent hits both of us the way unexpected music does in a grocery store. It's embarrassing. Don't, I say softly, because the part of me that keeps lists of regrets is paying attention. He doesn't. He blinks the last of the white out of his eyes and looks at me like he's choosing a word in a language he refuses to mispronounce. Blood runs under the torn fabric of his sleeve in a polite hurry. Up close, pain makes the corners of his mouth human. Consider this an investment in your humiliation, I tell him, already kneeling, already pulling the kit from my vest. I'll tell you later how you howled in pain. It's the wrong thing to say to a man like him. It's also the truest thing about me right now. I'd like him angry enough to live. A corner of his mouth lifts. You're damn bold for an omega. Labels are for boxes. Hold still. Not one of your strengths. Holding still, and yet here you are, setting an example. I cut the coat clean, fabric parting with the obedient sigh of something expensive. The wound is messy but not deep. A kiss of shrapnel along the deltoid, an ugly flower. Heat comes off him in a disciplined wave. My fingers go cold with focus, then hot with blood. The world reduces to stitches of sensation, the grain of gauze, the tin, breath of antiseptic, the tiny flinches he refuses to let reach his face. My hands shake once when the alcohol hits raw. I tell them to stop. They do, mostly. The fog presses against the broken hangar windows, like a crowd trying to see a celebrity fall down. Why, he says, flat, as I pull a sliver of metal with tweezers humming like a tuning fork. Because dead men don't chase well, I say. And because your job gets boring if you're just a chalk outline. That's 2 reasons. Pick the honest one. I am. The shard comes free with a wet, relieved sound. I drop it into the kit and pretend I don't want to chart the way his breath goes shallow when my knuckles brush his skin. I prefer my enemies ambulatory. Enemies, he echoes, like he's tasting the fit. That's still how you're styling us? The fog tastes like pine and electrics. My fingers move on their own, old drills, new stakes. I tape, wrap, knot. I'm close enough to see the moment his pupils adjust perfectly to me and the room at once. He's back online. You can style yourself however you like, I say, and cut the gauze. I'm not your publicist. He watches my hands tie off the bandage. Men like him always know what they owe. When I lean back on my heels, my body gives me other data I didn't ask for. The difference between the heat of him and the cold of the floor, the way my mouth wants to be smart and my shoulder wants to be stupid and lean. I've been hungry in a lot of ways. This isn't hunger. It's worse. It's a memory my body thinks it has of a thing it's never had. Press, breathe, share. I stand, because standing is a choice I can own. My knees argue before they decide to agree with me. We look at each other in the wide, ugly quiet that happens after noise. He's not trying to make his face do anything. It's a good face when it's honest. The admiration in it isn't flattering. It's attentive. He is cataloging me the way you catalog a tool you didn't know you needed. There's a beat where the air chooses, where instincts lean like dogs at a leash. Mine want to step forward. Mine want to check the fit of his throat in the cup of my palm the way you test a glass for cracks. Mine are traders with my mouth. Don't mistake gratitude for interest, I say, dry enough to splinter. Wouldn't dare, he says, soft enough to be believed. We hold there another breath. If I stay one more, the math changes. I don't like math that writes me out. I slide the knife back into myself, pick his gun up, drop the magazine, lock the slide, rack the chambered round into my palm, and set the empty back on the crate beside him. It's a courtesy and a threat threaded together. Pressure for 15 minutes, I tell him, and keep it clean. You look like the kind of man who puts his bandages in straight lines. Do that, Luke, he says as I turn, and his voice has the kind of care you give fragile things you respect. I don't look back. Don't make it weird. Does it help to say, you're not what they told me? No, I say, and mean yes so loudly it makes my teeth ache. The fog receives me the way water receives knives. The forest smells like absolution and old wars. Outside the hangar's mouth, the world is larger than two men trying not to be predictable. I move quick until the dark thickens again. Then I move quiet. Behind me, metal shifts. A man breathes. Somewhere a bird decides we are boring and goes to find food. I don't let myself look back until the trees have put their hands between us. When I do glance, it's through a seam of branches, a keyhole of moss and shadow. He is where I left him, palms braced on his own body like he's holding himself together on principle. His head tips back, eyes closed, mouth making an amused shape at the ceiling none of us can see. It is not a smile. It is the beginning of one that refuses to be rushed. Admiration looks strange on men like him, until it doesn't. On his face, it looks like a problem he plans to enjoy solving. I go before I start wanting things I can't have and shouldn't even write down. By the time I reach the bike, the fog has licked my clothes into a second skin. My fingers shake again, the aftershock of being more careful than usual. I press my hand to the tank, the way Miro does when she wants to say the soft things without saying them. The engine catches. The forest flinches. I let the machine's purr set my heart to something survivable. On the way out, I take the long path through the pines, where the air is all needles and clean. Every few trees, I leave him a thread only he'll read, a scuff at ankle height, a bent fern pointing the wrong way, the briefest smear of mint on bark. It's either arrogance or kindness to make the trail this clear, maybe both. The fog eats my rear light. The road finds me again like a friend pretending it never left. Behind me, somewhere in the hangar, a man who was supposed to break me sat still because I told him to, and smiled like the first wrong note in a song he's going to play until it breaks right. Hale's workshop smells like lives that learn to keep going. Gasoline, coffee, gone bitter on a warmer, paper that's outlasted the reason it was saved. The radio in the corner plays a slow trumpet through static, the kind of jazz that sounds like a second chance walking home at dawn. I lock the street door, drop the bolt on the alley door, and breathe until the world comes back into square edges. Hale isn't here. He's never here after dark. He leaves lights like breadcrumbs, and the ledger open to a blank page, as if faith could be an accounting method. I check the window twice, then a third time because I like being alive, and because the fog still has its fingers in my ribs from the hangar. I should keep moving. I don't. I make coffee I won't finish, and set water to boil on the hot plate, like a ritual the night requires. When the kettle rattles, I jump. When the alley door twitches once in its frame, I don't. Don't knock, I say. The neighbors will complain. The bolt slides back under a pressure I recognize. Darius steps in with the rain on his shoulders and my bandage under his sleeve. He shuts the door with the quiet of a man who knows which parts creak and which parts harm. The workshop makes room for him without trying. You look terrible, I say, because there are rules, and one of them is that we pretend we don't notice each other's relief. You set me on fire, he says mildly. This is me thriving. I gesture at the coffee. He glances at it like it might be an ambush, and then accepts the cup, because not accepting would be a different kind of war. He sips. The warm plate ticks. Why here? He asks. Because home's bad for you, I say, and then soften it. Because Hale's ledger likes blank pages. Because I wanted to see if the lamplight made you less of a problem. Does it? I consider him. The rain left his hair with a curl where it meets his neck, and the bandage under his sleeve pulls when he lifts his cup. Proof he's human, and not just a habit I picked up. Not yet. He sets the coffee down, checks the room the way men like him do. Worst case routes, best quick cover. He rests his hip on the workbench and looks at me straight. Your brother changed the contract. Let me guess. I make the knife of a smile because it's expected of me. Alive costs too much. Alive became inconvenient. He doesn't dress it. They put out 2 numbers, one for your return, one for my silence. The second is higher, flattering, unwise. The radio sighs, trumpet leaning into a note that hurts on purpose. I stir the pot on the hot plate, because hands need work when heads are doing new math. Beans, canned tomatoes, a handful of dry pasta meant for soup. It's not dinner so much as an apology to hunger. Darius's eyes do a small, private thing at the domestic sound. He doesn't mock it. You could walk, I say. He hears what I don't say, and leave me to be arithmetic. I could, he says. I won't. Generous, I say around the tightness. What do you want in return? A head start when you change your mind? He studies me as if we're both in a shop window, and the price tags are wrong. A night, he says finally, off the board. Then we decide how to be problems for each other in the morning. A night. I should say no. Night is how you get attached to breathing things. Fine, I say, but if you snore, I put you back on fire. I don't snore, he says, offended enough to make me laugh. It comes out quick, and startled like a bird out of a box. We keep it small. That's how you build rooms that hold. I sew the rent in his sleeve because it's a job for 2 hands, and he only has one good one. Cleans my knife because the edge offended him. I slide a pan across the hot plate, fry an egg because decadence is permitted on nights you don't die. He makes a face at my mint, takes another cup anyway. We eat leaning against the bench with plates on rags and our shoulders pretending not to be aware of each other. Mending calms me. Thread knows what it's for. I stitch through damp fabric with a sweet ache of concentration. the needle kissing in and out. Darius watches my hands with a craftsman's interest. Not your first seam, he says. Boys learn to hem quiet on my side of the house, I say. Suits don't come tailored for running. Your side was never allowed to run, he says softly. Yeah, I bite the thread. Turns out I'm not very good at letting people tell me what I'm for. He takes the sleeve back, fingers brushing my knuckles. The contact is accidental, and therefore more dangerous. I set the egg on his plate, because I can't set that down. He eats like a man who learned discipline from hunger and made a religion out of it. After, we leave the workshop for the edge of the lots behind it, where the ground drops away to a gully that keeps the wind for itself. It's not much of a campsite, just a circle of scabbed earth and 3 stones that remember other fires. I set the wood the way Hale taught me, and Darius lights it with a cheap lighter like he's paying penance to utility. The flames are small, polite. They put their hands up against the dark and say, "Just here, please." We sit easy, boot heels dug in, the night whispering around us. The talk finds its path the way water does, by gravity and the shape of what holds it. They warned me about marks when I was a kid, I say, the confession sneaking up as if I had planned not to tell it. How they make your blood into a leash. How you smell like obedience for the rest of your life. This is my voice when I'm not performing, low, done with being a headline. Darius turns a small stick in his hands until it stops being a stick and starts being a true thing. I didn't get warned, he says. We were told it was a covenant. Proof we were noble animals. Past tense, I say gently. He nods once. I was 25. Training unit, urban drills. We were hours into a controlled chaos, the kind with foam bullets and instructors hiding in closets to leap out and teach you humility. I took a corner too fast. She took it faster. Your pair, I say, a hinge in my throat. He meets my eyes without flinching. She was 19. Smiled like she knew a joke and didn't mind waiting a year to tell it. We hit each other at speed, the scent whiplash. He stops and breathes in the smoke like it could make the memory easier. It felt like the part of my brain with doors unlocked all at once. The bond came down like weather. The instructors cheered because that's what the pamphlet said. We were animals made noble. We were weapons calibrated. Then, there was a leak in the training gas line. A real one. Fire drills aren't meant to be fire. He doesn't change tone. That's worse than breaking. The heat took the oxygen. My control went like old thread. I couldn't hear her voice over the bond. That's the thing they don't put in pamphlets. When the leash tightens, you don't always know who's holding it. The wind shifts. The smoke licks his face. The fire says nothing useful. I dragged her the wrong way, he says. Toward the brightest thing. I thought I was saving us. I got my medals for what came next. I don't keep them. Silence is a living animal between us. It settles, sighs, rearranges its paws. I'm sorry, I say, and the words are smaller than the shape of the grief, but they are true. I don't let anyone in my head, not through instinct, not through law. I won't be a room someone else redecorates when I'm sleeping. He huffs a breath that is nearly a laugh and not at all one. Good. Hold to that like a religion. Let me be the heretic in peace. We watch the fire make new decisions about ash. The town breathes behind us. The slow creak of a neon sign going off for the night. A late truck. Complaining about second gear. A gull forgetting how to be nocturnal and trying anyway. Say something stupid, I tell him when the quiet starts to choose me. I don't like being the only one with bad theology. He thinks, your stitches are straight, he says. It's not stupid. I only have the one. I laugh. An actual laugh this time, warm and untrained. It surprises both of us. He glances over, and the look on his face is a weather change I can feel on my skin. If you weren't an alpha, I say, words coming out like they've been waiting in line, I'd almost trust you. If you weren't an omega, he says, without delay, I'd have kissed you already. The fire makes a small, delighted sound like fat hitting heat. I pretend to poke at it so my hands have something to do besides betray me. Don't, I say. And it's not a warning so much as a thesis statement. Don't make this the pamphlet. I won't. His voice is the low of a promise he knows how to keep. I'm not interested in a leash. I'm interested in a language. We let that sit. The night finds us where we are and decides not to move us. When the fire folds into ember, the cold makes its case. We answer by shifting closer without looking. At each other, the way two people on a bus do when both are trying to nap without sharing it. Back to back is the compromise our bodies invent. The contact is careful at first. The kind of touch you could pretend you didn't notice if someone asked. Moves between us like a heartbeat deciding to be plural. He is line straight and present. I am angular and pretending not to fit. We do, though. The fit is humiliatingly good. Try to sleep, he says. If you snore, I will lie about it forever. I told you, he says, already softer. I don't snore. The radio inside the workshop is a ghost through the wall, trumpet fading into a hiss that might be the sea. The ledger will be blank in the morning. The contract will still be wrong. The hunt will wait just beyond the edge of the light. Tonight, we have a fire the size of a hand, and a truth the size of a room. I breathe. He breathes. The wind takes our heat and gives some back. Between shoulder blades, a conversation happens in warmth and weight that none of our words can do better. The last thing I think before sleep does what it always does to people who pretend. They won't let it is that some rooms you build just to prove you can, some you keep because leaving would be a lie. The manor smelled like a body someone had left with the windows open. Old wood, wet stone, dust that had taken on the tone of rain. Vines had eaten the gutters and then forgotten why they started. Stained glass hung like fractured memories, a kaleidoscope of color dulled by mildew and time. It was the kind of place people left when they wanted to forget a fight. We had chosen it because nobody who mattered pried into places that looked like yesterday's dreams. Mira had picked the rooms like she picked locks. Fast, practical, with an eye for what might squeak. She'd found us a corner that breathed, and a cellar that smelled faintly of preserves, and she'd brought tins, water, a grim little grin that said she enjoyed this too much for her own safety. Hide the bike parts under the tarp, she told me, voice low. And stop being melodramatic about the light bulbs. They're meant to be dusty. I tucked the headlamp away anyway. There's a superstition you can set yourself on like armor. Light reveals more than bodies. Inside, the manor kept its dark, and the dark was polite enough to let us think it could protect us. We didn't stay hidden long. The first sign was wrongness in the air. An order to it, like someone rearranged the furniture of weather until it sat tighter. Then the windows answered with footsteps, careful, coordinated, a dozen of them threaded like braids. The clan doesn't shout their arrival when they're confident. They announce with presence. Rix, Mira said. And it was not a question. He'd come with a contingent that smelled of spare suits and cold money. They took the hall like they owned its echoes. Behind them, the lights of the countryside were carved into a patrol of dull lanterns. They moved as if they had rehearsed this exact walk in a mirror room. Rix walked like a ledger, every inch a calculation. You know where the boy is, he said, voice like a file. His men spread in the manor the way bad news spreads, quick and efficient. I heard Darius breathe behind me. His hand on my shoulder was a fact, not a comfort. We had the cellar door wedged, but sound travels through old houses like rumor. The first door downed with a thud like a chest being closed. Mira smiled in that way thieves smile when the dice land in their favor. You could have just come to ask, she said, and the sarcasm wrapped itself around the room. Rix didn't smile. He pulled a slim device from his coat, something made for modern cruelty. It smelled faintly of plastic and promises. We don't have time for small talk, he said, and we don't like games. Someone stepped forward, and my brain filled in the next mechanics. A dart gun, a syringe, a purpose built to make someone acquiesce. They'd started wiring people before. Old ways, new tools. This was a forcible mark. A nanotech chip meant to override the rare resistances. To tune a body's chemistry so the scent line followed their ledger. My gut went cold and loud. Move, Rix ordered. Darius shifted. Ready as a shadow is ready to be a shape. But I moved first. That's habit. First thought is always to move in the direction that keeps the dice in your hands. I moved, and the dart missed my shoulder by a breath, because Mira slid something into the hallway that pinged against metal and sang loud enough to make men look. Her distraction was precision. The man with the syringe turned and cursed. Wheels in the back of the house squealed as one of Rix's men chased the noise. I ran. The chandelier in the main hall was a ghost of glass. My boots clattered. I reached the corridor to the library and felt a needle slide warm and sharp into my ribs. It was practiced, not frantic. They had someone who knew where to aim to coax the chemistry open. I tasted metal. My vision tunneled to heat in long ribbons. The world made the bad choice easy. Let the needle finish, be taken, be used, or fight and risk worse. The nanotoxin hit like winter snap. My muscles betrayed me first. A twitch, a starburst across the left side of my jaw, fingers that wanted to open and not close. My breath became shallow lightning. Instinct, older than ledger and oath, rose like tide. It spoke in a language that felt prehistoric and very near a line. Bond. Obey. The floor swam. The scent in the hall sharpened into knives, cedar and cold linen, Rix and his men, and under it, a new smell, clinical and formal, like distilled obedience. My body answered with memory that was not mine to own anymore, and there was panic in that. The small, savage panic of a creature who found the harness tightening without being asked. Luke, Darius said, voice not quite his. Walking to me is an understatement. He crossed space as if it were paper he had to fold without tearing. He knelt beside me, ignoring the men who barked. He put his palms to my throat and my shoulder, and the world flared in a different magnet, his skin warm and real. Up close I could feel the tremor of his heartbeat, steadying mine like an anchor. Look at me, he said, in a way that was private and not for the men. Breathe. Only me. Feel me. Not them. My lungs wanted to follow the current the chip had opened. It wanted orders. Darius smelled like smoke and rain, and something that said, stay. My body wavered between auto and choice. The difference was a razor. I tried to obey him. I pulled my chin up. His scent, his actual living scent, filled the space and pressed like a palm against the noise of the technology. There's a weird biology to it. An alpha in certain configurations can act as a dam against the installed current, a living counter-frequency. Darius had a skill no chip accounted for. The man could be a wall when he chose. The men around us were talking now, the words a distant ocean. Rix's device clicked. He's resisting more than expected, a voice said. Contain him. Contain. The word smelled like cages. Mira clocked the movement behind Rix and threw a handful of flour into the air like a goddamn smokescreen of bakery. The sudden cloud cut the line of sight. Men coughed, cursed, stumbled. She darted for us, fingers finding the needle marks before they could become ledgered. Hold him, she hissed. Darius tightened his hands. I felt pressure shaped like a promise and a threat both. My limbs trembled, not from weakness, but from the tug of competing wills. The chip sang a light bright inside me, like haddles of heat, trying to remap my scent and my nerves to a tune written by someone else. But Darius's presence wove itself into that song like a counterpoint, a low bass note that called the rest back into harmonic. Words, he said, with something like urgency I hadn't heard in him before. Old words. Old words? I gasped, tongue clumsy. The fog of the toxin made language feel thick. Memory flared in shards. Phrases scraped up from books Mira had once smuggled, from an old ritual manual we'd joked about. There were legends about consensual marks, rituals that required willing touch and willing voice. Nobody used them anymore. They were theater for romantics. But theater could be a scaffold if you were brave enough to walk it. "Luke," Darius said, voice lower, softer. "Take my hand." My fingers were clumsy. The chip wanted me to find obedience elsewise. I forced my hand, like lifting a weight the wrong way, and slid my palm to rest in his. Heat shot through the contact, and it was not just warmth, but electricity. That arranged itself differently than the implant desired. His wrist in my palm was an axis. We spoke the words like thieves whispering a password into a vault. They sounded strange and old in our mouths. Selan, Amar, Ve, not words I owned, not syntax I used, stolen from a book Mira insisted had good curses and better rhymes. They felt right. They felt like closing shutters on a draft you'd been trying to hold a lamp against. Something replied. Light pooled at our joined wrists. Not the cold clinical blink of circuitry, but a soft, molten band of gold that wound itself around skin. The marks, my hunting brand, the ink of their intent, reddened like a map being redrawn. The light mirrored itself on both our arms and then, like a mirror finding its opposite, folded together. Symbols arranged themselves so that one looked at the other and saw its reflection, equal, reversed, sealed. The world narrowed into a pulse of heat and ozone, and the distant smell of things catching stepped back like an audience giving two actors space. Even Rix's men hesitated, their voices slotted into silence. I felt the chip inside me try to sing at a frequency tuned to obedience. The new light answered with a different music. Consent. The force that had wanted to own me had to push through something that would not yield, my hand. In Darius's, his voice on my name, the old words that asked for agreement, not domination. The pain eased as if someone had turned the dial down. The twitching stopped. A shudder went through me, the kind that follows a heavy storm, and when I could taste properly again, it was laced with salt and laughter. I leaned my forehead into his knuckles for a glitch of a second, ridiculous and raw. "Now," I said, attempting levity that felt like a dare. "If I bite you, it'll be consensual." He let out a breath that was half laugh and half command. "We'll see who breaks first," he said, and the smile that lifted the corner of his mouth was a thing that promised trouble and comfort in equal measure. Outside, the clan recalibrated. Rix's face had the look of a man who'd just had a trustworthy ledger rearranged into art and wasn't pleased with the theft. "This isn't finished," he said, but his words stumbled between us and the glow on our wrists, like a boat between docks. Mira, filthy and grin-smeared, clapped us both once. "Nice light show," she said. "You two need to go take a victory lap and maybe stop letting your family throw needles at you." Darius's hand found mine and squeezed, warm and steady. The ritual had not erased danger. The clan still wanted us for reasons their pockets wrote down. But the contract, the real one, had been written where it counted, in two hands that chose to hold. We left the manor with dust on our jeans and that gold ribbon around our wrists. The road smelled like storm and possibility. For once, the future felt like something not imposed on me, but something I'd chosen, and that made the next steps dangerous in a better way. Morning at the border looks like a promise someone left on a countertop. Sunlight poured careless across a long stretch of two-lane. Dust tasting faintly of cinnamon. Coffee steam curling from a paper cup Mira stole from me with the righteous air of a saint. The checkpoint itself is a drowsy cluster of prefab booths and a chain. Link sigh. The actual line is a rumor painted on asphalt and belief. Beyond it, the hills lift their shoulders like they're done carrying other people's names. We sit in the shade of a half-dead billboard that used to sell something aspirational and now sells sky through its missing panels. My bike leans with a satisfied animal's weight. Front wheel true, chain, oiled, mirrors adjusted to reflect only the parts of us we can stand. She purrs when I thumb the starter for no reason, just to hear morning answer back. Mira stands between us and the day, with her hands in the pockets of a jacket that has survived more stories than I ever want to know. She squints into the light, then at our wrists, where the equal marks rest like twin heartbeats that decided to learn choreography. "Don't forget to send me a postcard from paradise," she says, teeth flashing. If they let an alpha and an omega in at the same time, paradise has a strict mint syrup ban, I say solemnly. We'll be turned away at the pearly gate for crimes against coffee. Darius takes a sip of his black and stares at me over the lid. "I'll petition for a dispensation," Mira snorts, which is how she says I love you both, and I'm furious about it. She steps closer, bumps her shoulder against mine in a hug disguised as a tactical correction. "Northwest, once you cross. Keep the low roads for 2 days. People watch the obvious." "People like my brother," I say, mouth going dry for a heartbeat. "People like your brother's money," she corrects, gentle but not soft. "Money gets tired. So do men who carry it. Breathe." I breathe. The air has that thin, excited quality mornings get when they haven't had to disappoint anyone yet. The coffee is bad and perfect. I want to say 100 things that all unravel at my tongue. Thank you, don't die, don't let them make you tidy. Here is a map to the version of me you made possible. I distill them into a single look. She reads it with the efficiency of someone who's been stealing glances since childhood. "Go," she says, "before I remember how to be sentimental and start naming clouds after you." Darius lifts 2 fingers to his temple in a salute that isn't military and isn't casual. It's Mira-specific. "We owe you." "You owe me a souvenir," she says briskly. Something tacky. Magnets. A ceramic wolf that howls when the kettle boils. "Consider my taste offended," I tell her. It lives offended. She leans in and presses her forehead to mine for a single breath, a blessing from the Church of Thieves. Then she thumps the tank twice, the way she always does. "Bring him back in one piece," she says to Darius without looking. Then, to me, bring him back with better jokes. "No promises," we say in imperfect chorus. And the laugh that follows is the kind that can only happen once. Today, here with us still on this side of the next thing, we straddle the bike. It settles under us with the smugness of a creature that knows it's about to be necessary. The sun throws coins onto the tank. Darius fits behind me like he was measured against the idea of this seat. His thigh presses mine, a deliberate line of heat. His palms find my hips in a hold that is both practical and unarguably something else. The band at our wrists hums, real or imagined, I can't tell, but the warmth is there, a small furnace no pamphlet could have promised. "Helmet," I say, because flirting is a safety hazard and also a lifestyle. He buckles it with the serious concentration of a man disarming an explosive. "Ready? If you decide to turn me in," I add, voice light because the air is, "Give me a 10-second head start." "1," he says. I twist to glare and catch the smile he refuses to fully deploy. It lives at the corner of his mouth like a secret. "I don't like long goodbyes," he adds. "Cruel," I say. The bike answers my grief with the clean language of engines. "Fine. I'll settle for 8. Generous. Don't make me argue it down to 5. "Luke," he says, amusement slipping into the low register where vowels turn into heat. "What?" I say, pretending I don't already know. "Go." We go. The first stretch is easy, the road shouldering us forward with the kind of help you pretend isn't help. The checkpoint guard looks at our plates and our faces and our calm and decides paperwork is for another day. I don't breathe again until the chain link is a glitter behind us, until the line is no longer a rumor but an absence. Then, I breathe, like I invented it. Darius's chest touches my back when we lean into a mild bend. The contact is incidental and wholly not. Our marks warm. A second pulse, sinking to the road's hum. There's science, I know. Heat, friction, nerves, the suggestion of biology playing nicer when given a better story. But I also know what it feels like. A room inside my body I thought I'd boarded up now has light in it, and the light is mine. We ride with the day. Fields split into neat attitudes of green and dust. A hawk scribbles its name on the big blue sheet of sky. I make concessions to survival. Speed limits near towns, a flatter twist of throttle, where the tar shingles under summer. But I refuse to pretend I'm not happy. The feeling sits broad in my chest. A dog I didn't think would ever come when called. There's an overlook 10 miles in that isn't an overlook so much as a wide place in the shoulder where people have decided the view is allowed. I pull over because even joy needs a place to sit down. We kill the engine. Silence presses in, thick and good. The wind fusses with my hair. Darius takes off his helmet and hungers for air like a man stepping from a long corridor into a room. I used to picture this, I say, before I can edit it into cool. Not the exact tree or the exact crack in the road. Just this, us. A line behind us that means nothing. A horizon that isn't a rumor. Good picture, he says. Did you picture the mint syrup? I imagined we would negotiate your crimes slowly over time. Bold assumption, I say, and then shut up, because sometimes you ruin a thing by hanging lanterns on it. He slides a hand up, hesitation first always, and cups the hinge of my jaw like he's asking a question he already knows the answer to. The morning is a held breath. Cars hiss far off, like the sea. When his mouth touches mine, it's careful and ordinary and devastating. Not a claim, a conversation. Heat unknots something low and stubborn in me. My hand lands on his wrist, right over the mark, and the warmth there answers with a slow throb that feels like a yes we built. We part because the sun wants to see our faces, apparently. He looks at me like a craftsman checks a joint, sure, a little proud, ready to fix if he miscalculated. Okay? He asks. That was... I hunt the word and come up with a different one. Sane. He laughs once, surprised into it. High praise. It is, I say, and the wind steals what I don't say next. Safe. We ride again, and if the road was a promise, it becomes a practice. We stop once for fuel, and once for a bottle of water that costs more than the rest of the town. At the station, a woman with a toddler asks where we're headed. West, I tell her, and she nods like that's not a compass point, but a religion. In the next town, we buy a bag of peaches from a man who invented 3 new prices while we were deciding how hungry we were. Darius wipes juice from my knuckles with the corner of his sleeve like we've been together long enough to accept that intimacy can be absurd and specific. He keeps the pit and pretends it's for planting. I pretend to believe him. Somewhere around noon, the road climbs into hills stitched with wildflowers that don't care what families build or break. We pass a truck loaded with furniture covered by tarps. The wind makes the outlines look like sleeping giants. I open the bike up, let her sing a little. Behind me, Darius laughs into his helmet. One short bark, the sound of a man caught off guard by joy. It catches in my chest like a paper kite and pulls. Freedom smells like this: dust, gasoline, and his laugh trapped in the helmet's shell. It smells like choices made on purpose. It smells like a life you can reach with your hands. We stop one last time where the ridge gives us a long look at the world we're sliding into. The sun has decided on being generous. Clouds practice shapes they'll never keep. The marks at our wrists glow only if you know how to see them. I do. He does. That's enough. Plans? He asks. Because men who have served under bad plans develop an allergy to the absence of them. Find a place with poor judgment and decent coffee, I say. Fix something that isn't on fire. Sleep where the walls don't borrow their names from anyone I hate. Teach you how to drink mint without making that face. I don't make a face. You do. It's very brave. He hums like he's logging the contradiction for later debate. His hand finds mine where it's braced on the bar. He doesn't squeeze exactly. He rests, weight and warmth, a second spine to my palm. The quiet between us has no sharp edges. Ricks won't stop, I say, because truth hates being left out of good rooms. No. Darius agrees. But money gets tired. Mira's words. Good words. A pause. We'll be ready. The vowel clicks into place in my mouth with a correctness that feels ridiculous and also correct. We mount up for the last run, the road angled just so toward a horizon that refuses to act shy. The engine's growl gets into my bones and decides to be marrow. Darius leans in, helmet tapping mine, not an accident. Luke, he says, voice thin through plastic but clear in the places that matter. If you bite me, he says, laughter threaded through the threat, do it when I'm not steering. Consent, remember? I toss back. Very strict policy. Very, he echoes, and settles his hands where they belong. We take the bend, like a lesson we love. The bike turns our bodies into a single intention. The border is long behind us now. A rumor turned memory turned a thing that no longer owns our mornings. Ahead, the light fattens into something you can keep. If you're waiting for a chase cresting the hill, for a roadblock, for the book to reach back and remind us who wrote it, sorry. The day doesn't always do drama when you expect it. Sometimes the only thing that happens is that we are allowed to go. We go. The sun lifts, and with it the road, and with both of them the two of us, Alpha, Omega, Marks, singing a soft private chord at our wrists that no one else has to hear to be real. On the tank, our reflections double into one, smear, separate, rejoin as the miles fold under. I don't count them. I count breaths. Behind us, the morning we were becomes a small painting I can hang, where I keep the good ones. Ahead, the horizon is huge and unserious. I smile into the wind like a man who got away with something righteous. We take the long curve out of the ridge and down toward the ribbon of valley. The road empties of other people. The sky decides we're its favorite for a while. We don't speak, because there's nothing better than the words we already said. The last image you'd see, if this were a film, is two silhouettes on a bike that sounds like permanence, dissolving into a road that builds itself for them as they ride. The light at our wrists pulses once, twice, matching, mirrored, chosen, and then the frame widens until the details can't be counted anymore. Only trusted. We don't slow. We don't look back. We don't ask permission from air that was always ours. If we run, it's because we decided to run together,